Chapter 2. The Beginning of Survival. Seina's cruiser switched from navigation to inertial flight. "It's too quiet," Seina unconsciously murmured. "I don't think they can detect the stealth function on this ship. Is there anything to worry about?" Even Kerchi, who knew about Seina's crisis avoidance ability, was a little confused. This ship was constantly upgraded with a philosopher's latest technologies. If it could detect the ship, they would have to have the same level of tech as Eri. Nevertheless, he wasn't put at ease. A ship suddenly jumped out a short distance from them. Kerchi started the engine without hesitation and quickly dodged an attack. Gah! The battleship that came jumping out was a small aircraft carrier. 3 other ships came out right after them. Space pirates. Emergency jump. Kya! Kerchi declared. The cruiser and the battleships had very different mobility, and there were 4 of them, so their engines were taken out quickly. "We need to make it to that planet." Kerchi steered the ship towards the planet. "Kerchi, land there." Seina pointed to where the ship that transported the Kamedake would have gone down. "But why?" "Please." "Okay, I guess." There was no time to think about it. She corrected their trajectory and the cruiser fell into the atmosphere. Of course, the battleships followed. Kerchi focused on one of the monitors. "Hopefully this works," she said as she ejected a communication pod. They lost control of the ship for a brief moment, but soon their controls came back online, and half of the enemy ships had been taken out. The remaining 2 quickly fell apart in the atmosphere behind them. "What was that?" "I threw the communication pod at them after I overloaded it." "It seems that it worked." Kerchi breathed a sigh of relief. It should have scrambled their sensors and controls. "Luckily, we have a philosopher's ship, so our systems came back online quickly." "Oh!" I was scared for a moment there. The ship swayed and part of the outer hull detached. Usually it is impossible, but it's because this is Ms. Eri's ship, isn't it? It's like Eri has no concept of a limiter on the things she makes. I swear. However, thanks to that, I was able to do it. "It's 30 seconds to the ground. Is everything ready?" "Everything is fine. Our landing point is a bit dangerous. It's on the other side of the mountains, so we'll be in a blind spot from the perspective of Terran space." Preparing for landing, enabling shock resistance. The viscosity of the bridge's air increased, and Seina was enveloped by something that felt like cushioning material or gel. It was the same stuff that stopped the air spill when the outer hull was damaged when he was attacked by Kamachi in a previous training trip. The outer wall separated and jettisoned the protruding parts and the heavy engine. By lightening the load of the ship, it shortened the braking distance. But now they were on stored energy reserves and didn't have much time. "Deploy the shields." The shield came out in a streamlined shape and absorbed the impact. Even so, the landing came with quite the shock, but the gel completely counteracted it. Seina felt almost nothing. It was like a roller coaster with no wind, but the inertia was still there. Nevertheless, the ship was now unusable. They needed to find Fuku and get the Kamedake and her to safety. While thinking about how to do that, they skidded to a stop as a rock wall appeared in front of the cruiser. Naturally, there was nothing they could do at this point. "The shields will hold," Kerchi told him, but his worry wasn't of the impact, but of the falling rocks. "I hope it doesn't collapse. Even though the impact wouldn't harm him, it would be a pain to get out of, and there was no guarantee that the wall wouldn't just collapse on them entirely." Dagagagan. Although lots of sand was kicked up, the shield had managed to pierce a large hole in the rock wall, and the cruiser had stopped unexpectedly fine. Giant. Something woke up in this planet's darkest depths. At the same time, a small light flashed, then faded out. It looked like the flame of a human soul, and it was glowing pale. How did they? A small red light lit up to respond to that voice. "They've come back." "They're all here?" "No way." "Everyone. They're all back." The cruiser completely stopped, and the viscosity of the air returned to normal. Kerchi instantly got up and began to investigate the situation. "Do you have any injuries?" she asked in a worried voice, but she was still facing the monitor. "Yes, but I'm okay." They heard the sound of the shattered fragments striking the hull. That noise was the shield disappearing. "Let's hurry," Seina, who had a bad feeling, said as he grabbed a survival pack. He used it to blow open an emergency exit through which they departed. Can, gun, gone. The sound of the rocks hitting the hull gradually grew. Hurry! Wait a moment. Catch! Sena threw some energy reserves pulled from the console to Kerchi. Kerchi was as big as a human, but still weighed as much as NB. He could carry her, but he didn't want her to run out of power. He left the ship and moved somewhere that looked safe. Well, Sena, what now? Kerchi said shyly. Baki. The cliff crumbled and buried the ship. Sena waited for a bit, and when it was safe, he and Kerchi got up and looked at the settling rocks for a bit. Let's get out of here soon. Their pursuers had been shot down, but new ones should have been on their way. Because it was hot, Sena's suit deformed to cover his whole body like a second skin. It had many survival purposes. Sena's outfits were ridiculously over-engineered because Eri made them herself and she went overboard on all the functions. Well, maybe Eri just knew that Sena would need them, but there was no doubt she also used him for experiments. His outfit was designed so it was even possible to survive if he got sucked out into the vacuum of space. So needless to say, he could still breathe with it like this, and it took care of all excretion, moisture accumulation, and filtered the air. If he had to, he could live off the recycling for a week without any outside moisture. Sena's suit was also full of features not found in his enemy suits. It had heat sensors as well as the ability to trace even tiny amounts of odors to tell him if it had detected life signs or motion reactions. Although he had no subspace camouflage, it had optical camouflage and nanomachine detection prevention. He could be detected by a high-end scanner, but it was still a suit that could fetch a large fortune if put on the market. Be careful of leaving traces, Kerchi said as Sena got down and looked at the ground. There were a lot of footprints from them there. Even if he couldn't be seen by sensors, being seen because of his footprints would make that function useless. The wind was strong and full of dust, so thankfully they were about half gone already. Either way, they should be able to find those prints with a sensor, but it's getting filled in slowly. Sena took off his shoes and deformed his feet like a snake to increase the ground contact area. Kerchi returned to NB form and got on his backpack. Let's go. What? What's happening? The central operating room of Terrance Base, which was monitoring the battle with Sena, suddenly had its display monitors turn red and display an error code. What the hell did those guys do? The entire system has shut down. The cause seems to be an overflow from the super space used for system access. Are you serious? Are the access elements safe? All of the guys working here are done. Perhaps it is better to think that all the elements that were accessing this super space became useless. To the operator's answer, the operations chief looked at his personal cell phone, but it displayed an error just like the main monitor. Radio wave communication had to be used in a shielded base. Worst case scenario, wired communication must be used instead. How much of our backup inventory is this going to eat up? The operations chief asked, but nobody could honestly reply because nobody could check the stock in the warehouse. I'm guessing about 20% of what we have in reserve. Access elements didn't break when used normally. Still, they deteriorated, so at a private level it was normally necessary to replace them approximately every 100 years. The military replaced them every 30 years. Since the things used at Terrance Base were military items, they took time to procure. For that reason, they kept an inventory and replaced things in cycles that didn't overlap. It was divided into 10-year intervals. So, 20% of the stock was inherently sufficient. What about all the old devices? We may have some left, but they should have already been resold. An element with sufficiently high performance that was old-fashioned was still commonly used. Even for second-hand use, the demand for them was high for space pirates. Fuck me. The operator slammed his fist on the console. I told you it was dangerous to unify the net system, but those idiots demanded we do it. In the past, their facilities had been destroyed when the massive escape incident happened with the original J, and the system was redesigned after that. The technicians who knew that the GP had a state-of-the-art unified system said they wanted to unify theirs in a high-performance system like that, and Terrant gave his okay on it. State-of-the-art access elements allowed access to super high space with little time lag over long distances. However, since they were delicate, there was a safety system in place to prevent overflow accidents and allow for emergency communication in case of any mishaps. But because they got them through their connection with the GP army, it was hard for the space pirates to obtain large quantities of the safety system elements. In other words, they were using most of their elements in an almost unprotected state. Calculate priorities and hurry up and begin restoration work. Please check if we have any old-style devices that need to be changed. The repair technicians ran off as the operations chief collapsed in his chair. Do you think that's the reason we didn't pick up Sana Yamada's ship? Probably not, but there's nothing else that seems to be the cause. Lorelei Sana, the pestilence god. It's rumored that you can use normal communications still. Send someone out to find his location. Is it okay to use the nanomachines for communication? It's an emergency and vigilance from space is a priority. Besides, they're old. They're going to need to be replaced soon, so we may as well get what use we can from them. Basic nanomachines were often camouflaged as natural objects drifting in the environment so that they were hard to detect, but since they also aged and deteriorated, some needed to be replaced. There were also types that reproduced by making copies of themselves, but because they were picky about making duplication mistakes, they were only used in certain cases. After a certain period of time, the nanomachines biodegrade and turned into dust. Since the ship was destroyed, they won't be getting off this planet. Our communications blocking means no backup is coming either. There's no need to panic. Roger that. The operator stood up with a wry smile and went outside the room. Good morning. This kind of mannequin can be done easily. This place may be designed like a bunker and has strong security against external attacks. It's surprisingly fragile to those on the inside. Actually, Clay had made the same mistake once before, long ago. By the way, are you still there? Clay was looking with an embarrassed face at a monitor full of errors. I am. It's quite fine whether you are involved in this or not. It doesn't affect me here. I want to do this while the hoistoke is still here. If I can take over that ship, I can use it to get back to the academy. What do you have for payment for the body, though? What about this? Clay seemed a little surprised by the surprising proposal as he looked at the monitor. That would be okay. In other words, it was the access code that he wanted. The overflow of the super-spatial communications, however, had another effect on the hoistoke. A small incident was occurring with the guards. Are you going to provide us with replacement super-space communication elements? We have to return home too, you know. The army guy said with a high-pressured attitude, but with fear of Tarrant in his voice. You can make it home without it, it'll be tough, but I don't see how your functionality will be compromised. I don't mind, I'm just in a hurry. Well, since you don't mind so much, you also won't mind making an inventory and passing it on to be checked for. Roger that. Hey, we have a lot of work that needs to get done, so hurry. How long will it take you to get that inventory done? No time at all, I'll go get it right now. The guard headed to the designated warehouse. Captain, is everything okay? The operator approached the captain. What happened? A hole was opened momentarily in our security wall. Did you identify the location? We're in the wrong place to be figuring that out. I see, so it's something on our end. I won't tell anyone, you should also forget you know. I'll do the same. Okay. It's strange that no one's come after us yet. Sana stopped about 10 kilometers away from the crash site. It had been about 20 minutes so far. Normally someone should have been searching for Sana, but there were no reconnaissance ships or even an unmanned probe. Do you know what's going on? Sana said as he looked at Kerchi. Her body was originally Sana's NB, so she had advanced sensors. It appears that the enemy base's systems have crashed, and they are using the previously disabled nanomachines around the area to communicate. It looks like they're about to stop functioning though, so something must have happened that is making them use them. I should be able to access them. Their super-spatial systems have collapsed, and there's something about a battle. They probably mean the fight we had in orbit. It might be possible for us to get into their base. If we can rescue Fuku, we should be able to escape in the Kamadake. I don't want to even think about what she's going through right now. Kerchi began probing for Fuku. It appears the Kamadake is being constrained. Fuku is probably being time-frozen. Infiltration is not a realistic plan, but it's possible for me to enter their system and operate it. I may be able to undo the time freeze once we get closer, but But we need to make sure we get both of them, and we need to get closer. But it's dangerous. We'll give away our location. Is there any possibility it'll fail? Yes, I think that it's better to get closer first, but if we're talking safety, I think that it's better to just wait for help from Earth. Is that so? We need to act to make sure they get here as soon as possible, just in case. Kerchi said nervously. I'm sensing an energy response. Is it an enemy? Sena was wary of his surroundings. No, I think that someone is being attacked. It's not a dynamic reaction. An attack? From whom? Let's hurry and find out. Sena and Kerchi started running at the same time.